Hello! So I'm going to do this a different way. I have had an awful lot of new subscribers since I did the few live streams about the BF110. So I've got a new model today to start. Well, I've actually started it. I started it before I noticed how successful these videos were. But this camera is only 720p, and of course it looked awful. Some of you guys couldn't see the detail. So I've now got this one. This is a 1080 HD camera. I'm obviously recording a 2K image, so it's a bit stretched still, but it should be better. You can also now see my work area. So I'm working here, but I can talk to you guys here. I could probably make myself a bit smaller. So what's this other window? Well, this window here is a reference piece of material for this model. Now, this is the early French campaign Hurricane Mark 1. So this is a number 85 Squadron Air Force, Advanced Striking Force, based in Lille, Céline, France in May 1940. And it's this black-white scheme. Don't like that. I don't like the black-white scheme. Not least because my white images go on really poorly. White just doesn't seem to go on well at all. I don't know if it's because of the kind of paint that I'm using, or the mix I'm using, or not being patient enough, but they just don't go on well. So I want to make a Battle of Britain numbered aircraft. Now this is obviously a surviving aircraft. This is actually from, I believe it's from the Battle of Britain Memorial Flight based at Duxford. And it's different to this scheme. So the differences are obviously the prop we can see is black completely instead of with the yellow nose and yellow tips. Though there may be some slight colouring here. If we actually just look at this here, there is actually yellow on the tips of these. So we'll go for the yellow on the tips. I notice as well that there's some silvered marks and bits here, so we'll look at them. Interestingly, the exhaust, this is a real exhaust, there's hardly any colour down the aircraft look. Now, this is obviously an aircraft that's kept in pristine condition, but, you know, we're taking it on. Bringing the landing gear down has also extended the foot pedal. So if I actually move this forward, we can see the foot pedal there. So this foot pedal needs taking into account. But the reason I've got this image up is because I want to look at the inside of the landing bay. And the painting instructions, which are actually on this really nice thing here, it says to basically do silver on the inside here. And I couldn't believe that. I couldn't believe it was all silver. I thought it must be a light green or it must be a white to show up things better. But it does appear, look, to be silver. So I'm going to put aluminium in as the base colour. I'm not using steel. I want to be brighter than steel. This is clearly brighter than steel. I think steel would be too heavy as well. It's an aircraft. So aluminium makes sense. The first piece of the build was actually to get this part right. So if I show this camera here, so the first piece of the build were to put the air bottle in place. Then you put these three surrounding pieces in and let them set. Now it was a little bit wonky, but we got there in the end. The surface detail is also very good. You can see the amount of surface detail on an Airfix. This is for the stand, I believe. But anyway, this is a brand new kit, by the way. I've taken it off the sprue and started working on it off camera. We've got my palette. So my first challenge is to get some silver in the right place. And I've reorganised my work trays. So I've now got this tray with all my tools, materials and bits, everything but my brushes. And then I've got the tray, the old tray, just with paints in it. So this is now going to be my work area. I've actually sorted the light as well. Isn't that fantastic? Quick shout out, Amazon Vine customer review program. I got these free for review. These are Edison Screw E14 bulbs. They're LED. And they're really good. This is a really nice light to paint by. This is one of my tubs that I use for mixing and bits and bobs. We're not using that right now. That's actually something else for review. And that's a stray wire from somewhere else. So let's get my paints open. and let's start having a look. So we're not going to mix the eggshell right now. I just want the silver or the aluminium, wherever it's gone. There it is. So I do have aluminium, and as I said, I do have metallic steel as well. But we're going to go with the aluminium first. So we'll just give this a shake and let it stand a moment while I pick out my brush. So here's the brushes. I want to get in there quite well. It's not overly detailed, but it is fiddly. So I'm going to go with this, which is a Bouldermere #1. So this is from the Works, £2 a pack. And we will stand the brushes somewhere appropriate, just there. I'm not going to wet this at all. I want it to go on in one coat. There we go. So there's the aluminium, and it is a metallic colour. And I've taken it up into the brush and wiped off the worst. And what I'm going to do is go upwards along these detail lines. I'm going to come back and colour the oxygen bottle yellow probably later, or I may do a look up to see what colour they were in RAF service in 1940. I can't believe they wouldn't be yellow. So I'm going behind the struts and the pieces. This is still not the best placed and angle for you to see what I'm painting. So I'm just painting upwards into the well at the top end, and I'll turn it over and I'll do the bottom end later, but I'm trying not to obliterate any detail as I go. The detail has to stay prominent because we're going to highlight the detail later. I would normally dry brush the aluminium on to black to highlight something. This is the opposite technique. So this is highlighting the aluminium with a darker colour. Bring the light in a bit more so I can see a bit better. It's maybe blowing out the camera a bit, but I just need to see what's going on. And I'm just working it in. So there are some fine details on the bulkhead side, either side of the bottle. You can just see them in the HD camera right now. So there's a strut here, there's the bottle there, and another strut the other side. And I just want to get them right. I just want to get them in position. I'm taking out the lid because I shook the bottle, so there's plenty of paint on the lid. Now I'm just going to go around the struts and sides this way. So it's better to make this piece turn in my hand than make anything else happen. The other thing I've obviously realised is that you guys need a high-res camera, which obviously this is better, but because I'm right-handed, I'm always working in front of the lens. It's terrible for you, I know. It must be very frustrating to watch, but it's more about me telling you what I'm doing, I suppose. Now there's some detail on this wheel well as well, and we can see from the reference picture here that there is silver on both the struts in place and the back of the landing bay door, so we will silver that as and when. We won't silver it right now unless I can spot it and see where the sprue marks will be. If the sprue marks are in a place where it makes no odds and I can do it now, I will do it. So that's looking better. Okay, now I need to do the underside of these pieces because they're not done. Now I'm looking at the picture and I'm looking at the model. We can see this gully here, that this strut here goes in a gully there. Now I can't see the wall because of the shadow, but this wall looks to be made of the same material, so I'm going to paint that in here, that this gully and the opposite member are both silver aluminium too, because that way it can have a fair bit of time to dry before I go any further. I'm just looking at the lip as well, because obviously the plastic has an edge here. You can see the double hump edge. I don't know whether to run the aluminium along that or leave it blank. And looking at that, it's taking up eggshell, so we'll leave that blank as it is, and it looks good. So that's the first little bit of painting done. I actually need some rinse colour, some rinse water. I'm just going to rinse the worst off of that while I seek out the doors. So where are the landing bay doors? There they are. And we can immediately see that they're attached to the sprue top and bottom, so we can paint them in. So I've been a bit premature in cleaning that brush, but it'll be fine. Too much paint. So painting on the sprue isn't something I normally do. I did do it as a kid an awful lot, just because it made things a lot easier to work with back then, but I didn't have the tools or time or patience that I have now. The last build, by the way, took just under 3 weeks. So I think I worked a Friday, Saturday, Sunday on it the first week, and then the second weekend I worked on it just the Sunday, and then you guys had the live streams for the relaxing Saturday Sunday mix. The first weekend is generally just some of the internal details of a build. So what I would do is I just need to take some paint off my brush just to be able to take the detail. So what I'll normally do is work on the internal details, like inside this landing gear area and inside the cockpit area. And once I've worked on that, then I will come back to it later. I have no idea why they're barking. There's no noises going on. So there we go. That's the aluminium first coat on. So I'll just leave those, and what we'll do while they're going is we'll actually look at the instructions a little bit more. So basically the first build step is what I'm doing. So this was the connection of the air bottle. This was the placement of the air bottle into place, which is that forward piece there. But let's move that bottle, you can see that the air bottle is actually on that forward bulkhead. These two pieces were already in place. So these two wings were there, and then we put 3 pieces in to form, I'll show you, so we put these 3 pieces in to then form the rear side. But we've got these 2 markers, both here and here, for silver. So I'm thinking that that is the other wing top, which is here, and it's saying fix it on top like that. So we'll get my sprue cutters and a knife. And cutting away from the plastic, I will take 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we've got the wing off. What I'm going to do is just, can you see this like a notch? You can't see very well still on there. Let me just put the light on here. Sure, that'll need something later. It's not right, but getting there. There we go. So we're going to just dry fit that part on top of that one. Now I'm looking at it, there's actually a bit of the ejection moulding here. You see? You can actually just see the ejection pin mark. You can just take that off rather than it squash up and cause any issues. And they clearly want this to form, it forms a solid bail up. So that's the dry fit, and they basically want this all silver inside, so we can see you can clearly see now the bottle, the under there is what needs attention. Let me just recheck that fit, because it didn't feel, it feels snug on the left, but on the right it doesn't. There we go, clicked. So the wing overlap is not fantastic on this right hand side, so it's a bit shy of what we want to do. So actually it's not quite, there we go, it's not quite right. We'll just have to work that from the inside out. So when I come to glue it, we'll have to tape over this. But right now, we want the aluminium back. You can let that drain a second. We'll still take it out of the lid because there's still plenty in the lid. And there's actually detail on this piece, so this is going to need shading before we go further. The instructions say to take the silver over the wing as well, so we'll do that. Now there are 2 ejection pin marks on here, so we can see 2 ejection pin marks there and there. Not too pleased with them. So they're just those 2 circles just in front of the paintbrush tip. So they're not fantastic that they're there. Now I would recommend doing this if it was an open top. Don't do it with a rounded brush like this, use a flat brush. But because this is going to be hidden inside, it doesn't really matter that there are some brush strokes showing. Right, I'll leave that a second. Literally 10 seconds. And this one's just going to get a touch up before it becomes hard to reach. Well, it's not going to become hard to reach because we're going to touch it up some further stuff before we glue the 2 together. It's quite obvious we need to put some highlighting in beforehand. So let's plan that highlighting. I don't want super solid black in there. So what I might do is get a little bit of this brown and a little bit of this rust. So the rust it's just a matte rust, it's not a metallic rust colour. And what I may do is put very, very fine dots here and there. Now I'm looking at this reference material and there's dots on the struts, which we can't really do the struts. They're not even on this sprue, but on this sprue over here. And these are my nemesis to cut off, these very fine parts. So I'm actually planning to use a hot knife to get them off this time. This recommends putting F6 if you're not going to put it on a stand. Well, I'm not going to put it on a stand, so let's find F6. What sprue is that? Sprue D, sprue C, sprue B, sprue A. So is F this one? So sprue F is this one. So this notch that they want to fill is this clear part, which is intended to fill that hole. I'm confused as to why that's a clear part. We'll go with it. Okay, but being a clear part, I need PVA. I don't want to fog it up if I don't need to. So move the other sprues back up and spot my PVA. It's a bit big, and I'll get a cotton bud from my tray, and we will lift if I can open it. It's child safe, so you know, big baby like I am, I can't get it open. There we go. That is more than enough PVA than I will need for this little job. Just go into my spot. I'll get a cocktail stick as well. We'll just prepare the item. Now I can just lift it off, it doesn't really matter how it comes off. Oh, lost it. That's why I am terrible with losing cockpits. So let's just dry fit it. Drop straight in. So let's get some cocktail stick. Let's run it around the inside of the hole. Let's run it over the top. Just like that. What I want to do is just clear the hole out with the cocktail stick. And now we'll try and get it in one. Just like that. Okay, so that's in position. So we can just about make out the PVA and then the clear. And the clear part. And we will literally leave that for hours now. And that's all you can pretty much do. You have to do these things little by little by little. What I'm going to do in the meantime though, because I don't have the eggshell blue, we're going to experiment. What I've got is sky blue, and I've got light blue. Okay. Now these are very Germanic colours for the 109. That's another sky actually. That's my old sky. That's my new sky. So we're going to use sky, I think. And I'm going to add green to make that eggshell colour. And I think the green I'm going to add, I've got greenish grey, or I've got dark green, or I've got bronze green. I don't think the bronze is going to be right. I'll go for greenish grey. So we need to just mix this. So I'm going to use that, and I need a piece of sprue. Try this on. A flat piece would be best, but I've only got spare rounded pieces. We're going to use this piece of spare sprue as our test bed. So let's put the other one away. So this is sky, this is green. It's sealed on a little bit. Now it's separated out. Let's see if we can invigorate it a bit. And that hasn't mixed at all. Oh yeah, it's I don't know if it's dying. It's a very strange colour. It's coming back to the right colour-ish now. So that's more the colour, but it just looks awful. I don't think this will go on very well. It's so... I don't know, it's just so strange. think this is just gone. I think the paint is just dead. So let's just try inside. Actually, no, it does go on okay. Strangely enough, it goes on okay, and it looks the right shade to me. So this might be this paint's last hurrah. Yeah, I think I'll just put that to one side and worry about that later. Interesting. So if I show you the colour, so it's very, very green. See how light, how heavy it was in there, and how light it's got in there. I don't know if air's got to it. I'm going to guess maybe air did get to it because there's raw paint all dead down the side of the pot, which there shouldn't be normally. It doesn't quite close properly. In fact, I can see why not, because this is all chewed up. There we go. It's still not happy. Still not right, but whatever. Whatever. There we go. So we'll use the Helio Blue raw as it was, and it will go on. For that though, I will use a large, soft, flat brush like that one. So in the meantime then, let's just see what the first thingy looks like. Let's now look at colouring it. Now, I said I didn't want to put straight black in there. I've got straight black, Schwarz black 08. But I've also got this, which is Schwarz tar black 06. We'll use this. We'll use the tar black. I'll just mix it up. I literally want a dot of it. That's all I want. I can see it's not a pure black like Schwarz black is. That's all I want. Just one little dot. Like that. And I've got proper Revel Aquacolor mixer. And we're going to get a pipette and 2, 3, 4. Add 4 dots to it. 4. Got the dropsies today. Really have the dropsies. And I'm going to get a very fine brush. So this is a 0. I'm just going to mix them. And this is to make me a wash. And the wash is going to go down the panel lines in here. Like this. Okay, that's all we need, just a touch. I can use the reverse of the PVA cotton bud to now just clean those in. I'm wiping nearly all the black back off for the effect. So nearly all the black has come back out. But in there it now looks dirty and grimy and scuffed up. Let's now have a look for RAF 1940 Air Bottle Colour. This is the trouble, because there's so many models or modelling going on, they're generally the pictures you get. So this is the inside of a bomber, and quite clearly they're the air bottles for each aircrew, and they're yellow. It looks like the right era of aircraft. tail turret something or other. So I think that's actually an American bomber. I think that's a B-17. I think this is one of the waist turrets. I think this is the radio operator's area, or part of the bomb bay, and then obviously that's the cabin. And there are more here, look. B-24. So it's a B-24, B-17. That's the B-17 or B-24. They're not saying which, it's just on both. So we've got references of oranges in the American Air Force. What is the RAF colour? And why does it matter, do you think? Why do people bother with this kind of detail? I personally am bothering because I'm doing it to sort of learn as well. If I can find out what colour the oxygen bottle is, the air bottle, all the better. So let's do RAF World War II air bottle. Ah, that says RAF, and he's definitely black. There's another one here, Spitfire Spares, that's black. Oxygen, RAF Lancaster, black. See, black. So the RAF ones tended to be black by the look of it. So the fittings are silver or steel coloured. But that's the nearest. So we're going to go with black. I'm not going to use that diluted tar black, but I will use tar black still. And we'll get a very, very fine brush this time. So this is a 00 brush. So this is very, very delicate, if only you could see. So I'm trying to get, without touching the what would be aluminium, trying to get the sides on the air bottle. You can see the black I've put on there. It's right down this side. Now the bit that you can see from outside the model, so the bit that's more important, is this side and this side. I'm turning the wing to better suit the angle I want to paint at, rather than turning the brush. So I want this brush hand to stay where it is. I think we're good there. So we have a black matte Schwarz black, or not Schwarz black, tar black air bottle. We have dirt in the struts, and we have partly messed up areas. So this is now dry. This is the top side of the wing. This is now dry. And what I'm going to do is get a flat brush. This is a very, very fine flat brush. It doesn't have a number on it. This was one from China. And I'm going to pick up some of this Schwarz black off the tar black, tar black off the cocktail stick, and we're going to really get it down to nearly nothing off the brush. And now I'm going to dry brush, so I literally go backward and forward. Probably a bit too much off the brush. There's actually so little features on the model. I need a little bit more on the brush to let them pick up. There's actually a moulding, the 2 pin ejector marks are getting picked up, but also so are the shapes into the model. So you can see now the silver, how light the silver is, and you can see the slight dark to this. That dark is actually running in the seals and pores and marks that make up sort of the fuselage underside of the cockpit for the whole effect, and that looks quite nice together now in silver. So can move this aside. Need to think about gluing this, and I am going to use Tamiya extra thin, but I'm also going to use some Rebel contactor in each of these marks. So I have 2 different Rebel contactors, and the first one, we'll just get it going. There it is. So we'll do 3, 4. How can you tell I'm concentrating? Because I've stopped yabbering. I made a decision as well before I even opened the packet that I wasn't going to drill out the casing escape holes on the underside of the wing. I will paint them black when we get around to that part of the wing, but until then we'll just leave it. So now there's the click. This is just masking tape that clearly has decided to rebel at exactly the wrong moment. Okay. That's just poor planning on my part. I had no idea it was in this mess. It's still in this mess. What the heck? There we go. Okay. So the first piece, so I'm applying pressure as I'm running the tape over. And I'm going to do the same on each wing rear here. Now I need some Tamiya extra thin at this point because you can see the seam isn't right. Now the capillary action will take the extra thin straight in. We'll do the same on the other side. I have decided that I'm going to drill out the machine gun holes. So this will be an aircraft returning from action, which I've just landed, is the look I'm going to go for. Okay, so that's it mummified. It's literally got to sit like that for a minimum of 2 hours. I would recommend leaving it overnight, just to let it all set. What contactor and what poly cement does is it actually melts the plastic. So you've got two solid pieces of plastic, the insides of which melt, and then you stick them together and they meld and become one piece of plastic. But that can't have time if you keep pulling it apart, because you end up then with air bubbles. And the worst thing is that where it's gone hard at the edges, you pull it apart, you get an air bubble. So you've got a nice solid joint, you pull it apart, get an air bubble, and then you push it in and the air bubble stays. You pull it apart, you push it in and the air bubble gets bigger, and you're pumping air into the plastic, which makes for problems down the line. What I used to find many moons ago was that after maybe 2 or 3 years on display, a model's seams could pop. And it was just the action of either moisture getting into there, or every day the central heating, you put heat into the model, the air in those gaps would expand a little bit, and then they just push things apart. So you don't want to do that. This being dodgy was literally my own fault. It must have been caught on something, and I've chucked it in and left it, and it's got tangled up. Right, that completes page 1 of the instructions. We have put the air bottle onto the bulkhead, we've put the bulkhead in position, we've put the 3 pieces here around the bulkhead and put them on the wing. We've painted the top side here, and we've painted the insides all here and given them that black coat. That's page 1. That's been however long we've been recording, 42 minutes. The next pieces we'll look at in the next video are putting together this fine detail in the cockpit. So this is my nemesis, cutting these things off. It won't be pretty. It just won't be. Pressing the button. Bye for now.